Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Playmakers. What's up, guys? For today's video, I'm going to be going through my top 36 overall player rankings for fantasy football. So this is basically going to be like the first 3 rounds of a 12-team league, like my big board. And in the last 4 days, I've put out videos going through my running back, wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end rankings. So if you haven't seen those, check those out after this video. In this video, I'm going to try not to talk about players individually because I've already talked about all of these guys in the last 4 videos. I'm going to try to focus more on the trends. And there's obviously been a lot of shifts in these overall rankings since the last set I put out about a month ago. I mean, even recently, we've had a bunch of shakeups, finding out that Cam Akers is out for the season, Michael Thomas projected to miss at least the first few weeks of the season. All of that stuff has shifted these rankings. If you guys watch this video and you're enjoying the content, please just leave a like and subscribe to the channel. That really helps support me a lot, and I would appreciate it. And then also, the last thing before we get into it, let me know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of these rankings? I'll respond to everyone who comments, so let me hear your guys' perspectives. But now it's time to go through these rankings. At number 1, I have Christian McCaffrey. And as you can see, I actually have running backs in the first 9 slots. So in order, I have McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, Henry, Elliott, Barkley, Taylor, Eckler, and Chubb. You may have noticed that I actually flipped Alvin Kamara and Derrick Henry from my running back rankings. That's just because with this new news with Michael Thomas, I just think Kamara is going to be force-fed the ball, and having that extra volume in those first couple weeks, I think just puts him slightly ahead of Derrick Henry. They're obviously still very close together. I view Henry as more of the safe option, while Alvin Kamara has the much higher ceiling because of that passing upside. But you really can't go wrong with either of these guys. As you can see, I'm someone who likes to go running backs early and often. The top 9 guys are RBs. I think I kind of have some clear tiers with these guys. The first 5 running backs I'm very confident in: McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, Henry, and Zeke. All of those guys I think are locked in RB1s. And then once we get to Saquon, he definitely has the talent. I'm not sure about his injury. We still have to wait and see with that. And then also his offensive line is not great. And then you have guys like Jonathan Taylor, Eckler, Chubb, who I'd be fine, taking in the middle of the first round, but I'd much rather get those guys at value later in the first, and I think some of them are definitely going to be available there. In real drafts, I think Travis Kelce is probably going to be going in the middle of the first round, probably one of these wide receivers for sure, so I do think there's definitely going to be some value at running back later in the first round. But after those first 9 running backs, I then have back-to-back wide receivers with Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs. I think right now with Davante Adams not having a locked-in franchise quarterback, I think Hill and Diggs are the clear top 2 wide receivers, and I think they're very close together in terms of fantasy. Hill is definitely more of a big-time playmaker. He's not going to have a ton of volume, but he's going to have those huge burst plays. Stephon Diggs led the NFL in receptions. If somehow all of these running backs that I talked about go ahead of Hill or Diggs, I'd be fine taking them in the first round. I think it's a fair slot for them to be ranked, but I would much rather be going running back. After Hill and Diggs, I have Travis Kelce at number 12, the first tight end, and I am lower than him than consensus, which is kind of crazy to say because he's still in my first round, but he's going as a mid-first round pick. I'm just not that high on him. I was actually a little bit higher on him a couple weeks ago, but then I started really thinking, and he would just have to put up such an insane tight end season to justify, that mid-first round ADP. And even if he finishes as the tight end 1, I think he would basically have to replicate the insane numbers he put up last season with that insane positional advantage to truly capitalize. And I just don't really want to bet on that. But I mean, a late first, early second round pick, I would definitely spend that on Travis Kelce. After him here at 13 and 14, I have a pair of running backs, Aaron Jones and Joe Mixon. Still can't really talk about Aaron Jones a ton because we don't know about Aaron Rodgers. If Rodgers comes back, he moves up. If he doesn't, he drops down. I've talked about that a ton. After Aaron Jones, I have Joe Mixon, who's going to be a workhorse back, but just doesn't quite crack, that top tier that I had in the top 9. Then after that, I've got Davante Adams slotted in here at number 15. Same thing with Aaron Jones. Would be a mid-first round pick if Rodgers is back. Would definitely fall even farther if he was not. Then at 16, I have Antonio Gibson. He's a great second round running back who's likely going to be picked at the end of the round. He's just not quite up there with those other guys because I don't think he has that receiving role, but he's going to be a beast in the run game on an improved Washington football team offense. After him at number 17, I have DeAndre Hopkins, another one of these top wideouts. Doesn't quite crack that tier with Diggs and Hill, but is just right behind those guys. Then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, super close to Antonio Gibson. Hasn't proven a ton in the NFL yet, but should still be a very solid RB2 for you. Then I have 3 straight wide receivers with Calvin Ridley, Justin Jefferson, and Keenan Allen. I really love all 3 of these guys this year. I think they all have the potential to finish as high-end wide receiver ones while also being pretty safe, so you really can't go wrong with any of these guys. Calvin Ridley will likely be drafted a little bit higher than this. Justin Jefferson and Keenan Allen have been falling into the 3rd round, so that's probably where the value is with those players. Then I've got Najee Harris thrown in here. He's never been a player that I'm super high on, and I think I'm still lower than consensus, but he does just keep moving up these rankings because I am very running back focused. And then obviously he moved up a slot with Cam Akers being out for the season, but he's going to get a ton of volume, which I think gives him a decent amount of safety. And as a rookie, he doesn't have that insane CEH price tag, so I'd be fine taking a shot on him, later in the 2nd round. After that, I've got DK Metcalf, just behind that other tier of wide receivers that I talked about with Ridley, Jefferson, or Allen, but still a great wide receiver 1 to have on your team. After that, I've got DeAndre Swift, a very solid running back 2. Doesn't have a ton of security just because I don't think this Lions offense is going to have a ton of touchdown upside, but should be getting a lot of volume and would be a fine, late 2nd. He's probably going to be going in the 3rd round actually, which is even better in terms of value. Then after that, at number 25, I have Darren Waller. Keeps moving up my big board with all these other guys falling. Michael Thomas obviously fell off Cam Akers, so Waller continues to move up slots. And so I'd be totally fine taking him as an early to mid 3rd round pick at the tight end position. I definitely like the value where him and Kittle are going at much more than Travis Kelce's ADP. Next at 26, I have Chris Carson, way higher on him than consensus. So I definitely won't be picking him here, as an early 3rd round pick just because that's not being smart with value. But I'd be definitely picking him, end of the 3rd round, early 4th round. I think he has a ton of value at his current ADP. Then at 27, I have George Kittle, the tight end 3, just a little bit lower than Waller, but he's shown that he is basically a locked-in high-end tight end. So I'm feeling super good about him as a mid 3rd round pick. After that, I've got back-to-back wide receivers with A.J. Brown and Allen Robinson, 2 very different players, but I think will likely finish around each other. A.J. Brown, more of the big play guy, less stability, but has that really high weekly ceiling. Then you have Allen Robinson, who's a very safe week-to-week play, quarterback proof. He can have anyone out there and he's going to be putting up numbers, going to be getting a lot of targets, a lot of volume. And so just a very safe, wide receiver 1 or a top tier wide receiver 2 to have. Then after those 2 guys, I have J.K. Dobbins coming in at number 30, lower than consensus. I still have him, as a mid 3rd round pick. I wouldn't love to take him at that ADP, but he is a running back, which makes him valuable, and he does have that high-end upside with that very efficient Ravens run game. After that, I have a stretch of 3 wide receivers with Amari Cooper, Mike Evans, and Terry McLaurin. All of these guys are fringe wide receiver 1s who have potential to put up some seriously big seasons. We've already seen Amari Cooper and Mike Evans put up that wide receiver 1 production. We haven't seen it from Terry McLaurin yet, but he's obviously younger and has a much improved situation this year, so you really can't go wrong with any of those guys. Following those guys, it's 2 running backs, David Montgomery and Miles Sanders. Broke those 2 players down in a recent YouTube video, so check that out if you haven't already, but they're close together for a reason, going back to back in ADP right now as well. So some lower end RB2s going, at the end of the 3rd round. At the last slot, the number 36 position, I'm going to cheat here and put 2 players. I'm going to have Julio Jones and Robert Woods. I really just couldn't pick one over the other. I think they're just very different in terms of what you're looking for. Julio Jones definitely has that higher ceiling. You've seen him for years be a high-end wide receiver 1. Robert Woods is definitely safer. You know exactly what kind of situation he's in. He's been a wide receiver 2 for 3 straight seasons and now has that higher upside with Stafford. Julio Jones is probably the better receiver overall, but he's going into a new offense. And so it's really just more of what you're looking for. So pick whatever guy you like out of those two. All right, so that is going to wrap it up for my top 36 player rankings. As you guys can see, it's pretty running back focused. That is how I go about my drafts, but obviously I would shift these rankings depending on what players I picked in the early rounds. So if I go 2 running backs early, I'm probably not going to be looking at a guy like J.K. Dobbins or Montgomery or Sanders in the 3rd round. And then also just keep in mind that for most of these players, this is the latest I'm going to be drafting them. Obviously guys are going to fall to you. People aren't going to be picking the direct order of your guys' draft board. So the majority of these picks you're going to be getting at better value. So make sure you guys keep that in mind. If you enjoyed this video, please just leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. And then again, let me know your thoughts down below. I've finished up all these rankings, so if you haven't checked out the other positional ones, make sure you guys look out for those. In the next 2 days, I'm going to be putting out another mock draft and another player versus player comparison, so we're getting back onto that schedule. But that's all I have for you guys today. I do think I kept it shorter than the other videos. Hopefully I did. We'll see. But thank you guys again, and I'll see you tomorrow.